Well, good afternoon, my friends. So last week, we heard the Sermon on the Plain in which Jesus preached to the crowds about the 4 blessings and the 4 woes. Do you remember that? Blessed are the poor, the hungry, the weeping, and the outcasts. And woe to those with riches, possessions, laughter, and reputation. Well, if you weren't confused and uncomfortable last week, then get ready, because today we hear even more. It gets better, doesn't it? Jesus said, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. As he always does, Jesus turns our world and our lives upside down, doesn't he? His message defies our common wisdom then and today. And when you think about it, on its face, it really doesn't make sense. It's not what we want to do. It's not what we would ordinarily do. But this is how he wants us to live. He wants us to look at life in a way that's seen through his eyes, not ours. And so, among all the challenges we just heard, there's one sentence today that I want us to think about. Just one. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Matthew West has a beautiful song called Forgiveness. And he sings, it's the hardest thing to give away and the last thing on your mind today. It always goes to those who don't deserve, and it's the opposite of how you feel. When the pain they caused is just too real, it takes everything you have just to say the word forgiveness. My sisters and my brothers, that's something that we need to think about today, is that we all have unforgiveness in our lives. We all do. Unforgiveness. It's there, and you know it is. And it's even more difficult if it is existing in our close relationships, is it not? Our spouses, our children, our parents, our family. They become often the hardest people for us to forgive. Why is that? Why is that? Maybe it's because when they hurt us, it cuts much deeper, so much deeper, than if someone you didn't know hurt you. Am I right? Because it came from someone that you trusted, someone that you loved. And my friends, this is a difficult message to hear today, because all of us in some way have suffered great pain in our life from other people. And forgiveness is the furthest thing on our mind for those people. Yet forgiveness is one of the greatest acts of love. It is. Greatest acts of love. And it's also one of the greatest acts of freedom. Freedom. Freedom for you, for me, to heal. Freedom to be set free from the hurts, those things that have happened in the past. And my friends, that's what Jesus wants for us today. He wants us to remember. He wants us to be free of those things that bind us, those past hurts. And so as you think about that, think about forgiveness. It is hard. Forgiveness is maybe the hardest thing we have to do in our lives. But I want you to think about 3 things about forgiveness. 3 things. 1, forgiveness is a grace from God. 2, it is healing and it is freeing. And 3, it can lead to reconciliation. So when you think about it, first, forgiveness is a grace from God. You have to ask God to restore that love into your heart. Because in your heart, love and anger cannot occupy the same space. It is impossible. Either one is there and it knocks the other one out. Love and anger cannot occupy your heart at the same time. Our strength to forgive is not enough. We need strength from Him. This is where the power to forgive comes from, because we may think it's impossible, but nothing is impossible for Him, is it? It's said that it is not on our forgiveness is not something that just happens. It's only upon the will of God. So if you find it that I don't have the strength to do it, ask for the grace. And if you want to, think about Jesus when He hung on the cross. Do you remember what He said before He died? He forgave His enemies on the cross. Do you remember? But how did He do it? I'll remind you, we'll hear this soon enough. There's Lent starting very soon. He turned to His Father and He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Think about that. Even Jesus turned to the Father for that power. Forgiveness can't come from ourselves. It has to be a grace that you ask for from God. And the second thing is, it is healing. Forgiveness is healing, and it frees us from this bondage that we find ourselves stuck in. It said that unforgiveness is a spiritual stroke. A spiritual stroke. It said that unforgiveness in our heart blocks the flow of healing in our body. Just remember, forgiveness doesn't mean that you forget, because it's a memory, and that memory may be with you your whole life. But when we hold on to that memory and cling to it, it is self-torture, is it not? It is self-torture, because I guarantee you, you're hurting worse than the person that hurt you. You're clinging to something they've already forgotten about. They've moved on. All of this bitterness and resentment that we hold in our heart, all it does is shackle us. It puts us in prison. It constrains our mind. Forgiveness has to start here in your heart. It involves releasing that pain. It means releasing the wounds that bind us. The last thing about forgiveness is it can, and I say can, I didn't say will. It can lead to reconciliation. Because when someone that we love, especially those that we love, hurt us, it destroys and damages something that is foundational to our relationship. And that's trust. Remember, it's trust. And forgiving someone doesn't excuse them. It doesn't make it right. And it doesn't automatically restore the trust. Because who has to rebuild the trust? You? Them. They're the ones who broke it. It means they have to restore the trust. And forgiving also doesn't mean that we passively accept their behavior. If they keep doing it, move on. Forgiveness doesn't mean to be a victim at all, does it? Those who have hurt us have to be the ones who do the work. They're the ones who have to really want to reconcile and restore the trust. So as you think about that, think about all those aspects of forgiveness. There's a story that I have shared before, but it's right on point, my friends. So there was a priest called to a hospital for a dying patient. And the nurse told the priest that the man is Catholic, but he keeps yelling all night long, God, please forgive me. And so the priest came into the room, and the man was rude. Man said, I don't want you here. I don't need you here. There is nothing you can do for me. And so the priest wasn't disturbed. He stayed. He started talking to the man about little things. And eventually he said, what do you want to tell me? What's weighing on your soul, my friend? So the man started crying, and he said, 30, 30, it makes me cry. 35 years ago, he was driving a truck and he was drunk. And he struck a family. And he killed a father, a mother, and a daughter. A young boy survived. He went to prison. And in that whole time, he said, I will never be forgiven. God will never forgive me. The family will never forgive me. There's nothing I can ever do to get forgiveness for this. So at that point, the priest began to cry. And he simply said, my son, that little boy was me. He said, I forgave you a long time ago. And he said, if I can forgive you, then God has already forgiven you. My sisters and my brothers, forgiveness is not easy. But Jesus, he doesn't give us anything that's easy to do, does he? We have to become like him. We have to be loving. We have to be merciful. We have to be forgiving to friend and foe alike. I ask you today, think about it. Is there unforgiveness in your life? What hurts are you hanging on to? And how badly do you want to be healed? How badly? Because forgiveness, again, doesn't excuse what happened. It doesn't mean that it never happened. But only when we let it go can we begin to heal. Can we begin to actually love again? My friends, forgiveness. It's said that to forgive is to set a prisoner free. And when you do, you'll discover that that prisoner is you. Amen?